Hello and welcome to today's 5 Ways You Never Thought to Use Snagit webinar. My name is Jason Valland. I'm an instructional designer and master trainer here at TechSmith. If this is your first webinar with TechSmith, welcome. If you're a regular attendee, hey everybody, how's it going? It is my privilege and pleasure to introduce a new member to the webinar family today, Miss Emily Musser. Emily is our senior Emmy, not Emily. Oh my gosh. Go ahead, Emmy. You got it for the rest of the day. I'm honored. Okay.
Hi, Jason.
Hey. So Emmy is our senior portfolio marketing manager in charge of Snagit. So there could not be a better person to have with today's webinar than Emmy. And she's got a lot of amazing things to share. In fact, she's going to do some of the color commentary, and I'm going to walk us through some of the processes and these 5 ways that we never thought to use Snagit. So before we get into all of that, however, I also want to let you know that there are some other TechSmithies with us. There's Chandra, Rob, and Melissa. They are all in the Q&A section found at the bottom of the Zoom webinar interface. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in there and they'll do their best to answer them. They won't be able to get to everybody because there's several hundred of you with us today. So we appreciate you for being here. They also, if the questions make sense for the greater good, they will pass them along to Emmy and I, and we'll go through and answer those questions as well. So let's go through some of that housekeeping here, Emmy. We're going to go through today's agenda. So those 5-ish things, they're going to center around these topics: replacing a meeting, setting a goal for fewer, better meetings. Listen closely because we've got some experience with that. Personal reminders. Stop repeating yourself. I actually have a story about this for being a teacher back in the day, so we can talk about that. And to use Snagit for team building activities. A couple things that people always ask us. Yes, today's webinar, as with all of our webinars, will be recorded. And you'll receive an email from us via the email you used to register for the event in about 24 hours or so. I do my best to get it out within 24 hours. You can use that link to rewatch this video at any time, slow it down, go back and catch parts that you might have missed, as well as share that link with colleagues, maybe people who you might find this information be helpful, or they didn't know about the webinar or didn't sign up. It's totally fine. Share that link widely and happily with your group. We already talked a little bit about getting the answers to your questions with the Q&A section there at the bottom. Some of you have discovered that the chat is open as well. Our TechSmithies are going to do their best to manage the Q&A questions. So if you have questions, use the Q&A section. Chat is reserved for you fine folks to engage and interact with each other and maybe answer each other's questions throughout the session as well. If you find it useful, we also enabled live transcription that you can turn on and off, the closed captions here at the bottom of the webinar interface so that you can get the most out of today's presentation. And then last but certainly not least, we have a 4-day Snagit challenge series that is free to sign up for. We have the bit.ly link there. If you do not have access to bit.ly, we can put the regular link in the chat as well. One of us will get to that soon as well. This is a fun, self-paced 4-day opportunity to learn more about Snagit, to dive a little bit deeper into Snagit, and you use some of the things that we'll share today within that session as well. So Emmy, I'm going to hand it over to you as we start our presentation about where did this webinar even kind of come from? Okay.
Thanks, Jason. So part of one of the most fun parts of my role at TechSmith is talking to Snagit users. I get to do a lot of interviews, and we're looking for bugs and things that aren't working perfectly, but we're also looking for unique use cases and to better understand what future features our users need and what we want to develop. So the use of Snagit, this 30-plus-year-old product, has changed drastically over the years, especially accelerated by the pandemic in the last 2, because like it or not, we all had to get a lot better at working remote and now working hybrid, and some of us all back in person. So what you'll hear today, consider it like pulling up your chair around the conference table in the Snagit think tank as we're all chatting about, oh, well, I just got off this interview and I heard this great thing. And someone else saying, me too, me too, me too. So we try to take the best of the interviews, the most popular things, and say, yeah, we got to get this out to more users. And use the chat. Please use the chat today to share your plus ones, or some of this you might also be doing or be doing a little different. We hope to learn just as much from you today as well. So I'll dive in here. All right, we create this tool that is Snagit, and we know that it helps people communicate in remote and hybrid worlds. But honestly, at TechSmith, we weren't all that great doing it ourselves. So our calendars were still jam-packed with synchronous meetings through Zoom and whatnot. And we weren't necessarily leveraging our own tools. So to really like immerse ourselves and practice what we preach, company-wide in July, we adopted this async first experiment. And the hypothesis here, Jason is sharing before you. So the idea is if we didn't have to be back to back to back to back with meetings, what might be different? Would people be happier? Would people be more productive? Would we have this innovation to have those deep thinking moments and aha moments and, even just a little more fun? So async first to us meant pretty much no meetings in July. I mean, very few exceptions, onboarding new employees, obviously interviews would be awkward, all with video, but we really leaned in. We cleared our calendars. And Jason, I would love for you to add your personal experience on this too, but we spent a whole month going from a pretty meeting heavy culture to not. And Jason, jump in here.
Yeah, so absolutely. This was a tremendous mind shift for us. And you're talking about the people that make Snagit, and we talk about how powerful it is to do some of the things we're talking about today, right? Replacing meetings. I found on our team, we're on the customer education team, we were able to really, really focus in on projects because we were able to commit several hours at a time to them instead of interspersing them with a meeting and a half-hour meeting and a check-in. We did still check in with each other, and there were some face-to-face meetings, virtually, of course, as needed or as deemed. But man, I would say it was I don't even have the numbers in front of me, but if I had 10 meetings a day, I maybe dropped down to one-ish meeting. It was quite a significant change. And since that month has ended, we have not gone back to completely the way it was before. I think we've learned a lot of lessons. And as a matter of fact, we can talk about what we learned here magically on your next slide.
Yes, spoiler alert a little bit. So we're doing a deep dive on all the research, which we can do a whole nother hour webinar on later. We won't do that today, but we are publishing the full research and white paper early in September. So we'll make sure y'all get that if you're interested. But I mean, the quick things that jumped off the paper when we were looking at key findings are there are some things that are easy to replace. And there's some things that really are horrible if you try to replace them. So async can't be everything, shouldn't be everything, but it can help. So it can replace direct share outs. We've all been in the meeting. I think of the Charlie Brown teacher, like the wah, 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 wah. We've been in those meetings. It can replace metrics, updates, informal training, and demos. But when you need to deliberate, decide, or debate, so those problem-solving meetings, you still need to get together. But so what we've heard from users too, also during July, I'll mention, we did Snagit 50 first dates. So rapid fire interviews with 50 Snagit users talking about this same subject. And so a lot of these themes came from them too. And I'll share with you in our top 5 today, some of the ways that they're using Snagit in these ways. So if you want to move ahead, what does it look like to replace a meeting with Snagit? Now, we all know that Snagit is a really powerful way to capture your screen, get a quick video, and have an editor. But for me, and for a lot of our users, this little magic feature you might not know about, set your presets before. So I'm just sharing my presets here. If I have to communicate with someone outside of TechSmith, like a vendor, I'm using videos to Microsoft Outlook. That way, as soon as I record my video, I don't have to click share, copy, put it in an email. It just goes, creates the email for me. If I'm communicating internally with my TechSmith team, then we lean on Slack, but I'm sharing 2 options here. Jason, you could probably pop over to Snagit. There are tons of options.
Oh, yeah.
Make your day a little easier on that share. And I don't know about everyone here, but sometimes it feels like any 30 seconds saved in your day is just money. So presets let you do that. It just takes one more step, several more clicks out of the process, get your information out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So for people that don't know, Emmy may have just exposed something pretty awesome to you, and that is the idea of presets inside of Snagit. So with the Snagit capture window, if you're on a Windows machine, your capture window kind of floats around here. If you're on a Mac, it's anchored up here to the upper right-hand corner. But presets is this kind of nondescript little button down here on the bottom left-hand corner. And when you click on it, there's actually some that are there by default. We have a grab text one that's by default and a panoramic scrolling capture, but you'll notice that I've got a couple of them here already set for myself. So here's how you set a preset. It's pretty easy to do. There's a plus button drop-down menu that we click on, and I always choose new preset. And that brings up this preset menu where you can make some choices. First, you have to decide what kind of capture are you going to take. Is it an all-in-one, an image, or a video? And each one that you choose has different options available with it. Emmy, I'm indecisive. I always have been with my Snagit use. I leave it on all-in-one, which allows me to decide at that moment whether it's going to be an image or a video or a panoramic capture. So I'm going to create a preset that's an all-in-one capture. Because I'm trying to save some time, I'm actually going to toggle off the editor, because by default, when you make a capture with Snagit, it opens up the editor under the assumption you're going to make some changes. And sometimes I need to do that. But for my presets, I want to kind of get going on my day. So I leave the preview and editor turned off. I always copy it to the clipboard because it's nice to have it to paste somewhere else if I need it. I almost always leave the capture of the cursor off, and the 5-second delay is turned off as well. Now with this, there's a little dropout menu here that gives me a few more powerful options. And this is where I think Emmy leans heavily on Snagit, and that is deciding the type of capture region or selection and the share destination. So the selection type, there's a region capture, which is your traditional Snagit use, right? You click and drag over a space, and that's what you capture on your screen. You can capture a specific window, which means you can hover over a live window on your computer and capture that right away, or grab everything full screen. That way you've got complete context of what's on your screen. I'm going to choose the region capture, and then I'm going to make the most powerful decision of my day, and that is, where's this image going to go? So you have share destinations. There are a lot of built-in share destinations that come with Snagit. There are also ones you can add for free from our website. Now, some of these might not show up for you, and it's because you might not have those things installed. Like, for example, I don't have Word sitting here in my selection tool because one of the all-in-one capture options might be a video, and video isn't supported by Word. But I often send things to screencast.com. It's our hosting solution, but I most often send things right to Camtasia. For fun, let's share this to Slack, which is our internal communication tool. So right now I have an all-in-one option preset ready to go. That's going to be a region capture and send right to Slack. When I click Save Preset, it adds that to my preset selection. It's kind of cool. It drops it right in there. I can rename this if it's better to name it something for my help. I can make changes to it. I can do all those things from right here. While it's in the presets, few things I can do. One, if I'm a keyboard shortcut user, I'm a hotkey user, I can set a keyboard shortcut for it right here in the presets. I can use this gear icon to rename it, to edit it, to duplicate it. Maybe I want to make the same sort of capture, but send it to Screencast or send it to Camtasia. I can start with this one as a template. I can export this preset and share it with members of my team. Maybe Emmy's like, hey, I want that preset, but I don't want to spend the 8 seconds it takes to make it. I can share that with her as long as we're running the same versions of Snagit. I can also initiate that capture right here from the preset. So if I click on this button, I get my region capture up. Let's say I want to just capture the Camtasia logo over here on the right, make it an image. It immediately will tell me to sign into Slack, which I have turned off while I'm in the webinar, but then you can immediately see that it sends it out to go. For example, I also have this Word blue border one set up. I don't even have Word open on my computer, but if I start that capture, we'll do that same little corner to Camtasia. It already is sending that over to Word. It'll launch Word. It'll drop the image right into a new document with, in this case, a blue border because I set it up for that. So presets are pretty amazing. They can really save you some time. And if you set your capture parameters up here at the top in the capture window, you can also just choose to create a new preset from those current settings and be on your way.
Yeah, cool. A lot of good examples there, Jason. Thanks for going through those. So
Mhm.
we started the same, we're replacing the meeting. We've got our preset in place. We know where it's being sent. Next fun thing that we've seen a lot of our users benefiting from, I want to talk about pip shapes for a minute. So the value of having your camera on, this can be a generational challenge, right? Like I'm a Gen Xer. I didn't grow up with informal video or a cell phone in my hand. Like the only video I saw was really polished stuff on TV. So the idea of like getting over the vanity factors of video struggle is real. So over time, I've definitely come to realize, and we hear it from a lot of our users too, that if you're working remote and hybrid, to add your face and add your voice, it just makes work a lot more effective and engaging. So I'm going to share a couple tricks on that. First with pip shapes. Now, this is a newer feature. So Jason will show you how to get there in a second if you don't know how. You can change the shape, the size, and the location of where your picture in picture shows up in your video. And here's an example of why that's important. I took a screen capture of some data I'm trying to share, but my face is blocking a bunch of it. Not very useful. So the next slide shows you, I just shift a little bit, shrink myself down, and then I can still share that same report really easily. You can also turn picture in picture on and off. So that's an option throughout your video if blocking becomes an issue. So there's a couple of different ways to solve that, but can't emphasize enough the power of adding that video and letting your face be seen. Also, I'll just anecdotally sidetrack here for a second and say, set yourself a rule on these videos. You know, the first time I shared a video with my team, it was supposed to be like a 2 to 3 minute quick share. I spent hours doing it and redoing it. I would stop and start and go, oh, that sounded dumb. I have to start over. And, or my hair looked weird and my voice sounded funny. And okay, so now I have a one and done rule. Like make your point, send your video. Jason, how about you? Are you committed to that? How many takes do you
Uh,
internal?
I'm get in and get out. The thing I love about Snagit, and I'll do a sample video right here, is I call it down and dirty. You get what you get. It's for more casual communication internally for me. As a matter of fact, if I bring up Snagit here and I hit capture, and I am going to just capture this part of the page, and I'm going to record that video. First, what I need to do is I'm going to turn off because my screen is blank, right? Because it's trying to grab the same camera as is on my screen. So I'm going to grab this one here. Actually, I'm going to turn off my Zoom camera and go back in and do another capture. So yeah, the thing for me, Emmy, is I like to talk. I hate typing emails, And I like to be able to create videos because it's simple enough for me to capture that content for my team, my coworkers. It makes it easier for them to consume my content, and then they can get back to me at their own time. So if I want to create this video, the thing Emmy was talking about is this little corner picture here. Are you seeing that circular picture, Emmy?
Yes, yes, sir.
Awesome. So new in Snagit is the ability to have those different shapes. And if you use the drop-down menu next to your webcam option here in the capture toolbar, you've got everything from your circle to a rectangle, which is the more traditional way that most people are using Snagit video now. The rounded rectangle, which I think is kind of classy. I think it's really classy. Your square, and then your rounded square, which I think is my favorite. But the most powerful part for me is the ability not only to reposition my corner of my camera, but I can resize it so that if I am obscuring content, I can move it out of the way and slip it out and easily share with people that way. Recording a video in Snagit is as simple as hitting the record button, which we'll do right now. We'll get a 3, 2, 1 countdown. Hi, everybody. Jason from the customer education team. Take a look at these great new webinars we're offering. Lots of them in Camtasia and Snagit. And is that an Audiate webinar coming up in September? TechSmith.com/webinars. They're free to sign up for. Please join us when you get a chance. Thanks. I think the most powerful part for me, though, Emmy, is that when you hit stop, the video is rendered and ready to be shared right now inside of Snagit. This video is live. Hi, everybody. Jason from the customer education team. Take a look at these great new webinars we're offering. Okay, there's lots of opportunities for you to quickly make a video and send it out. A half-hour meeting. Think about this. Sometimes it's spent with me coming in, sitting everybody down, walking through this website. Hey, geez, what do you guys think? Should I have made some changes? When I could make a 2 or 3 minute video that says, here's what the new webinar page looks like. It's live right now. I'm excited about it. What feedback do you have from me? That might even be a 40-second video. And then everybody can come to that meeting with their ideas, or maybe we just don't have a meeting and everybody shoots their own response video with Snagit, or takes a still screen image and marks it up based on some changes they would suggest. Now, I didn't mean to pause it there, Emmy, but my face. Can you help me out here? What are we going to do?
Face is one of my vanity issues, right? So frozen face. Anyone who's ever recorded a video has that moment where you go to send and you're like, great. Everyone I'm sending this to, I have this face that's, my mouth is half open and it's awkward. So a little trick for how to trim that off of your videos using Snagit. When you go to record, just take that deep breath at the beginning. Don't start talking right away. Be relaxed, casual, smile, whatever you want to be, whatever you want that frozen face to be, that gets stuck on your video and sent out to your full team, you have a little control over. Then when you start talking, you won't miss anything when you go back and trim off the first couple of seconds of your video to make sure it's at a point where you feel a little more comfortable sending that out. Jason, can you demo the trimming? So the trimming feature is the best here. And one more thing I'll mention on trimming videos. So you mentioned a half-hour meeting and replacing a half-hour meeting. No one wants to get a half-hour video. I mean, the beauty of that is you can speed up the playback, so that's nice. But something that a user, one of our users during 51st Days actually mentioned, he's getting a lot better response from his team when he breaks up a 30-minute, say, data share out into 5-minute or less chunks and sends them over the course of a day or so, like part 1, or, the Google Analytics just for this thing. People are consuming and retaining his information better by breaking it up. So he could still record it in full time using the trimming feature. You could record separate videos, but there's multiple cool uses in addition to fixing frozen face for trimming videos.
Absolutely. Yeah. Trimming is really easy to do. So in Snagit, it's not a full-blown video editor. We fully understand that, but you can do some subtle adjustments. In fact, this playhead that you're seeing on your screen has a green and red tab. And that's actually called a selection tool. And if I wanted to cut a section out of the middle of my video, I simply drag those handles to the left or to the right to make a quick cut. All I have to do is hit cut, and that section is out of my video. In fact, you can see on the timeline there's a little yellow mark where the cut has happened. Now, I don't often do that in the middle of my Snagit videos, but more often than not, I will take those few seconds at the beginning, like Emmy says, to collect myself, smile, and then I would simply trim a second or two off of my videos at the beginning. Now, this selection tool is really, really powerful, and we're going to talk about it with the second thing we're going to talk about here, because we're actually getting really deep into this first one. Emmy, we gotta move it along. See, this is why we like playing with Snagit, and that is you can use this selection tool to create something pretty powerful that we'll talk about here in a second. But Emmy, I think I'm going to pull up your image about whether or not we should actually have a meeting when we can use Snagit to make a change here.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, we talked earlier about there's certain types of meetings easy to replace. Some you really shouldn't, but there's a gray area. So there's this little guide that we've put together, and we can share this afterwards as well. But it really helps with teams because if you introduce the concept to your team of replacing a meeting, I bet you'll get a mixed bag. We certainly did. We had some people saying, absolutely not. Won't consider it. And some of our users say that too. When we were interviewing, they say, oh, our industry would never do that. It wouldn't work in our culture. But then in the next breath, they go on to explain how, oh yeah, I use Snagit video to provide feedback. Well, that's kind of the same as replacing a meeting. So going through this thought process, we found helped especially our team members who felt a little bit overwhelmed by the concept of replace the whole meeting. So I won't read through the whole thing here, but we can definitely follow up and provide it. The main part that I wanted to share with everyone here today is, say that you get really good at replacing a meeting. One thing that we heard from a lot of our users was, I wish my coworkers would do this too. I don't know how to get them to do it. So the next couple of tips and tricks are things that we've learned from them, of people who had to kind of nudge that person who is not really open to it. So the first thing, and Jason, this is where you're going with our good friend, the GIF, right? Oh, you're muted, buddy. Jason.
That ruined my joke. That ruined my joke. You said GIF, or you said GIF, and I said GIF. So this is where
I said GIF and you said GIF. It doesn't, yeah.
It's fighting words. Yeah. So yeah, go right ahead.
All right. So this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, and breaking down whether it's long training pieces. So a great use case here. Say that you're onboarding a new employee and you have just a dozen things that you need to teach that new team member. How to use payroll, how to access benefits, how to log into the system, all of these things. And pieces of that change over time. So you want to update the middle, but not all of it. What's nice about being able to make a GIF or GIF, depending on if you're Team Emmy or Team Jason here, the ability to use the trim tool and break it up. So then you can store in your library each of these bite-sized little video pieces, instead of one big long one that, say, just the way you access payroll changes and you'd have to update the whole video. You don't have to do that. You can just update that one little section.
Yeah, absolutely. So what Emmy's saying holds so much truth for me, and that is the use of an animated GIF. Now, if you're not familiar with what that is, it's not a video. It's not quite an image. It's a series of looping images with no audio. It's usually a lower file size and less frames per second, but it couldn't be easier to make inside of Snagit. How you do it: find the section of your video that you want to turn into an animated GIF. For me, I'm going to pick right about here at the 4.5 second mark, and I'm going to make a selection with my selection tool where it just drags to a little bit more of an exposure. Now, this is not a real exciting video for it, but when I make that selection, instead of choosing cancel or cut, I'm simply going to click on this button down here on the right that says GIF to create an animated GIF. When I click on it, Snagit asks a really important question. Do you want to make one out of the selection you just made, or the whole video? Now, my whole video is 17 seconds long. Could that be an animated GIF? It could, right? My animated GIFs typically top out at 10 seconds, 12 at the longest, because they're supposed to be tight, quick, simple, and digestible. So I'm going to choose use selection, and then I get a few more options. I almost always leave my drop-down optimization choice on screen video, because that's where it's being shared, right? I'm dropping it in Slack. I'm putting it on a web page. I'm sending it to Camtasia to use in a bigger project. And then for me, I don't know about you, Emmy, I always click fade to black. For me, in the world of looping video, if it's an instructional piece, oops, hit my microphone, sorry. If it's an instructional piece, it's nice to have that quick frame of black screen so that you know when the process ends and when it restarts. So when I hit create, Snagit's going to chew through that little section. It's only about 3 or 4 seconds long, and it's going to create an animated GIF, and it's going to drop that right down here in my recents tray over here on the left. And I can tell it's a GIF because it's labeled with GIF, and it is a 6-second long one. And now if I play that back, my hand's off my mouse here, and it's literally going to go to the end. You'll see the quality is a little different because the frames are lessened because it's a smaller frame size, smaller file size. It's going to loop independently, and it is now ready to be shared. Those animated GIFs are extremely powerful. In the same way, there's another button, and I don't even think we were going to talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it now. There's a button next to the GIF button, which is a PNG, a portable network graphic, an image button. I can take my video that I just spent time on, and I can make still images out of it. If I want to create a how-to guide later on, a help documentation using templates, foreshadowing, that we could use for later on, I can actually create those still images out of different sections of my video. And then, of course, I would have to look for those non-creepy, that's creepy enough, frozen faces. I'll tell you what, I mean, It's a thing we got to deal with, right? So creating animated GIFs are powerful out of your videos. You can take large videos, break it into smaller, digestible chunks.
Yeah, so that is a cool way to help get some of your team members also to say, a video doesn't have to be this big, long production. Anyone can handle a 2 to 3 minute thing. The more they value getting those from you, hopefully they'll start having some intrigue and interest in creating them themselves. So one surefire way, and I took this from one of our Snagit 50 first state users also. I'm going to use it all the time. I absolutely love it. You probably all know about Snagit templates, but have you ever thought of using Snagit templates to prompt or poke your coworker to respond to you with a video instead of, say, a super long email message or a meeting request or those infinite, endless Slack chains that it takes you 3 hours to read through? So using a template, here's a quick example of how you can ask a question as a prompt. And then I just created my demo. I had a question that I wanted the team's feedback on. So we're obviously always studying workplace communications, trying to make Snagit this superpower tool to make work comms better. And we started diving into, hey, different needs for different people, and wanted to get the team coalescing around the difference between someone like on our dev team versus someone who's in our marketing management team, for example. So instead of sitting in a room and working through our thoughts in real time together, people received this prompt, got to sleep on it, think about it a little bit, and then send their video responses back. Then I can combine all that information and decide which themes were rising, which ones do we want to test further, and we didn't have to have a synchronous meeting to do it. And another really important part of this, not everyone does great in a synchronous meeting speaking up. Some of your brightest, best teammates are introverted or, you know, I've been called ready, fire, aim at times. Like, I'll just talk, which, you know, has its pros and cons, right? But some team members really want more time to deliberate before they're going to share an idea. So it really equals the playing field and make sure that you're not losing those really important voices because of different personality types.
Yeah, so those use of templates is extremely powerful, and there's lots of flexibility with that. Now, if you've never used a template, versions of Snagit should have a button up here that's called Create, right? And when you click Create, one of the first options is Image from Template. When you click on that, you're provided with an image template menu. And Snagit actually comes preloaded with a ton of possible options. In fact, there's the deep sea planet stacked landscape one that Emmy used earlier. I use pretty basic ones to start. Now, you can always get more if you're a member of the Snagit library, if you have an account with us through the asset library. I like this one, to be honest with you, Emmy, this industrial two-step. It's just a before and after for me. So I select the template that I want to use and I hit create. And here's the template here inside of Snagit. Nearly every part of this screen is customizable. Everything from the colors to the text to the sizing. But the powerful part is these drop zones here where you can go down to your recents tray and you can click and drag an image right up into those positions. So I took those two still images from the video just moments ago, and I can create a templated image from those images there. There we go. And I can size them up. I can take those images and be like, hey, did you guys notice there is this new audiate one? So we can resize things and put them exactly where we want. We can use the Snagit tools to annotate them, like, hey, notice that there's 5 Snagit video or Snagit webinars, and there's only 3 of the Camtasia ones, whatever ones I wanted to mark up. And I could send this over to people, like Emmy was saying, for responses. It's just another great way of using Snagit so that I don't have to do all the extra legwork. I want to rely on the expertise and the subject matter experts that I have at my disposal on my teams. And it's pretty powerful. Now, I will say the next section that you want to share about today, Emmy, when I was cheating and going through your notes, I think this next one, this personal reminders one, brilliant, just brilliant. And I can't wait for you to share people with that. That one was pretty powerful to me.
Yeah, we talked about how we can replace meetings, how we can get our coworkers to replace meetings, and now this is kind of super sleuth, is what I like to call it. So when you
Mhm.
are in a synchronous meeting, and say that you're in Zoom, there's always that moment where you're like, oh, I need to freeze and capture that one piece that my coworker's talking about because I have a question on it. And for me, that usually comes up multiple times, but depending on how many people are in that meeting, it's not always the right time to interject and ask that question. Can take you down this rabbit hole of a whole nother conversation, and you have too much to get through, that kind of stuff. So one of the cool ways we've seen a lot of our users talking about using Snagit too, and I like it because they always act like it's sneaky. I don't know if you use that word, Jason, but
Yeah.
it's like this super sleuth. It's just smart, you know. So at times I jot stuff down in a notebook, but who goes back and reads that? So the efficient way to do this with Snagit, sitting through a Zoom meeting, take the screen capture of the slide that comes up, and then I'm in Snagit, just adding quick notes as to what I wanted, the question I wanted to remember. So this is an example of a meeting I actually was in yesterday, and I had question 15 minutes and 32 seconds in. I always put the time on there as well, because I know that the meeting recording will be shared. And if I forget the context because you're going to the next thing, then I can go back without having to watch the full video, jump in at 15 minutes and 32 seconds in, watch that piece again, and remind myself, oh yes, I meant to ask about full funnel messaging, not just mid-funnel messaging here.
Mhm.
This is also a way that, say that I have a team member who can't attend the meeting, and it's like, especially on vacation, the more you record meetings, the more you can come back from vacation feeling like, man, I've got to catch up on a full week of recordings. So a nice coworker thing to do would be pull out the main points that you think your teammate would be interested in and throw it in those templates like Jason was showing earlier with the caption, you know, meeting from August 10th. Check out this point, and this point. And that way you save them from having to watch that entire thing and protect their actual vacation.
I think even at a greater stage, in fact, this happened earlier in our presentation, Emmy. This is a graphic everybody wanted. And the chat and question area blew up and said, can you share that with us? And someone said, why don't you just take a snag with Snag? And I was like,
I didn't
oh,
even,
yeah.
sadly. Genius user. Good job.
There you go. Yeah. So this is the idea of time stamping your own captures for this purpose is, I thought, great. I do this all the time. Our company has a Monday morning meeting every Monday, shares lots of information in a quick, tight half hour for the entire company. And often I will take quick snapshots of it to revisit later on, or to, you know, be able to formulate a question later on. So I think that's a really, really powerful use as well. So Emmy, the next thing you were talking about is something that's near and dear to my heart as a former educator, and that is the idea of stopping the repeating statements. Stop repeating yourself. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that? And then I will add to it all day long, because oh my goodness.
Well, I'm interested to know also in the chat if people feel like they're doing this more in a virtual or hybrid world than when we were in person. I feel like water cooler talk used to actually spread some key themes throughout an office a little more efficiently. But now in a virtual world, I do often get, so the workplace communications mission, that's my, you know, what I eat, live, breathe, whatever that statement is all day. So I'm constantly talking about it, and I like to talk about it. That's okay. But it would be helpful if I had just the 90-second elevator pitch of what is this mission about? So when team members ask, you know, is this TikTok video I'm making, is this on point, or whatever the question is, to just, instead of syncing up and repeating that, be able to share something that's already recorded. So that's one extreme use case. More commonly, what we hear team members say is, so you have a system for pulling back-end data or getting a report. Instead of showing every single person how to do that, and people probably don't do that as often as you if you're in data, for example. So something that you've memorized, but they need a reminder, even the same person needs a reminder every 3 months. Just save them in your library. You get asked that question, share the link. So
Now, it's
time
interesting.
saver.
You say library, and that's something that people that use Snagit for years did not realize is there, right? So they would typically take a capture with Snagit, annotate it, and send it out into the world so that it can do its job, right? Most people don't realize in the upper left-hand corner of their Snagit editor is a button that says library. Now, as soon as I click on that, this begins to populate. And I'm actually a little embarrassed before I switched machines and before we created the cloud library as we know it, my previous instance of Snagit had 42,000 files. I am a hardcore Snagit user over the past 10 years. The library allows you to quickly dive into those capture histories on your machine and across your machines if you're using the cloud library option, and have it broken down, right? If I know I took an image, I have my images broken up here. If I know I took a video, I have those as well. We even break them up by year. And if you break them up in the year, it'll break it out based on, you know, months of the year. It even is good about the application you captured it in. So if I know I was doing stuff inside of Camtasia or Google Chrome or whatever it is, and even the websites that I've captured. But I think the most powerful thing in people that underutilize this is the tagging method, right? It's the idea of being able to quickly go back and find your images. For example, if I go into the editor or back here to the primary editor, and I want to save this image somehow, I want to tag it so I can find it later on. Down in the left-hand corner, there is a tag button, and my list will probably be expansive compared to yours if you've never used it, because I've added a lot of tags, but I can add tags to this image. I could say Emmy, because this is the webinar I did with Emmy, or before and after, and then that frozen face. All these different ways I could label that so that I can find it later on. What I then could do is go about my day, come back in a week, come back in 2 weeks, come back later this afternoon, go back into my library, and either go down here to the tags section where I could find all those tags I just added. Like there's the frozen face one. It's the same image, right? The before and after. But when you get to the point where you have thousands and thousands of images and captures and many, many tags, you can also search for them here at the top. Like I know I'm working on some level up content. So I could search for level. I could search for that before and after that I just did, and it will find those images right for me right inside of Snagit. It's super powerful. It's a quick and easy way to, how do we say it? Not reinvent the wheel. If you've already got that capture. Back in the day, this used to be a big deal on TechSmith's campus because we were spread out over 5 buildings. And if you worked in one building and had to go to a meeting in another, it was like walking into a foreign land. So we would capture the floor plans, the layouts of each of the buildings, and label them in the Snagit library based on their number, 2405, 2369. I'm like, oh, I got to go meet with Emmy today. Isn't she over in 2375 in the back corner, I think? I could quickly walk up to that, pull up that image and go, oh, there's her office, and confidently walk over and have my meeting with Emmy. So library is powerful. Tagging your images is powerful. And if you find you no longer need a particular tag, like in this image, I don't need one that says frozen face. I simply right click on that tag, choose delete, no harm, no foul, it's out. Emmy, we got a little bit more time and one more thing we wanted to cover before maybe we take some questions from our attendees. And I think the last one you wanted to talk about was using Snagit for team building. And I'm going to pull up an image just to capture the gist of that.
The only question anyone's going to have when they see this is, where do I get that pillow? And we will answer that question. So one of the things that made my heart very happy, the more I've talked to different Snagit users, is to know how much fun they're actually having with Snagit. There's been a lot of forced, awkward interaction moments, right? Since we've gone remote or hybrid, we try to stay connected. So I think a lot of different managers have tried a lot of different things, and some of them are cheesy and some of them hit and some of them miss. But one thing that's fun with Snagit, it goes back to the power of showing your face and putting out some video. Is, well, we're hearing that teams are using Snagit, much like the question prompt earlier, to talk about a work subject, but to talk about something personal. So Monday morning in your Slack channel, someone on your team throws out your question of the day or the week that has nothing to do with work, just something random and fun. One that I really liked is, what is your favorite modern day convenience? I actually answered the Lunchable because I have 3 kids and I'm not always great at packing lunches that fast, but no comments in the chat about making healthier lunch choices. All right. So the point though is it's awesome to see people having fun with Snagit, using it like you were saying earlier, Jason, just quick videos that you don't have to give a lot of thought to. And then we incentivize it if people respond. Occasionally we'll give a prize. And this is one of our Snagit team members, Scott, won the Snagit pillow. He jokes that he can use it to scream into on frustrating work days, but hey, however he uses it, up to him. Point being, Snagit can be fun, lots of ways to use it. And it just takes someone bold to get started and kind of throw themselves out there. So don't be afraid to be that person on your team. Throw out the prompt and see what happens. I think you'll be delightfully surprised.
The best question that just came in, Emmy, is can the pillow be used to start a capture? That's the best question of the day. I don't know if there's going to be a better one. So that's
0.0 version of the pillow.
There you go. There you go. So, Emmy, we still have time, and I'm going to reach out to the crew that's been helping us out. I've been kind of looking at some questions here, and a lot of people are talking about how they're using Snagit, how to use Snagit amongst teams and stuff like that. So it's pretty awesome. One question people are asking that I'm going to bring up right now is I talked about my cloud library, and we actually have that's a new part of Snagit, not this release, but last release, which was the ability to manage when you install Snagit, you can actually select a location for your library storage. And this was helpful for people that had an instance of Snagit running on a computer at work, and then they wanted one at home that they wanted to be able to access those same captures. For me, I work both on a Windows machine and a Mac machine, and it would have been nice to have our captures in one place. Well, you can do that if you have a version of Snagit that supports it, which I believe started, and this is where I'm going to loudly say to Rob, hey, Rob, I think it started with Snagit 2021. In the editor, you go up to Edit, Editor Preferences, and the Library tab. And this is where your library location information will be given. Right now, I've got mine shared to our TechSmith Dropbox account, right? I've got a folder in there that's just called Snagit. And every time I save an image, or I make a capture, or I make an adjustment, it syncs directly to that Dropbox folder so that regardless of whatever laptop or computer I pick up, I have access to all of my images. Let's see here. Other questions that have come in, Emmy, and this I'll leave up to you, but we can talk about this. Someone was saying, can we show how to get a quick link and share it? Maybe it's coming, how to share video into Slack, into Teams. So I'm going to show you a couple of ways, and then we can talk about anything further you might want to talk about regarding that topic. If I am in Snagit in general, I can click on the share button in the upper right-hand corner, and I have my share destinations available to me. Now, these are mine, meaning these are things that I have installed on my computer that I have available to me, up to and including programs that you might not have installed. Sending it to Slack is as easy as clicking the Slack button, making sure you're signed in. It'll let you pick where it's going to. This is a still image, so you'll see that all these options, except for YouTube, shows up as available. Well, that's because YouTube isn't a image hosting service. It's a video hosting service. So if I switch over to a video option and choose the share menu, some of my still image places like Word, OneNote, Excel are grayed out because these are the places that you can use for video. If you are sending to somewhere on a regular basis, you might have noticed, if you've got your eagle eyes on, that I have a screencast.com button in the upper right-hand corner. That's because inside of Snagit, you can customize your toolbar by going to the More dropdown at the top and choosing Customize Toolbar at the bottom. What that allows you to do is go through all the different tools that are available in your toolbar, including share destinations. So I put Screencast up there because I send things to Screencast a lot. In fact, I'm going to add Camtasia up there because I send things to Camtasia. I make a lot of videos. And as of recently, share a lot to Slack. So I'm going to move Slack up there as well. So when I click Done, and I'd say I want to share it to Screencast, I literally click on it. It'll upload to Screencast, which I'm already logged into. It grabs me an image. I now have a link. So if I went out to our presentation site and I just pasted that link, there's the image. just like that. I can share it to people. I can send it off. I can do whatever I want to do with that image right away. But Emmy, is there an easier way?
Well, there will be.
Oh, there will be.
There will
Interesting.
be. So Snagit 2023, set to release this fall. I won't say a date because then it will change. We're working on something called Share a Link. And what we showed with presets today and what Jason just showed with customizing the toolbar, there are a lot of different ways to share relatively quickly now, but a lot of our users have been asking for share a link. So the button that currently says share switches to share a link, and it's as simple as what I'm describing. Click and you have a link. This link at the launch of Snagit 2023 will go straight to screencast, but your recipient of that video doesn't really need to know that. It makes it accessible to them. And some other great features that are happening within screencast, again, behind the scenes. And this is all about the Snagit experience. It's all about making your workplace comms simple, share. Once a person gets there, you'll see a new feature where they're able to comment on your screen capture or your video or whatever you share, and you'll be alerted. So it's really streamlining and making that whole experience come full circle of sharing and then you getting feedback. So Snagit 2023, that's one of our big stories.
Yeah, I won't say a date either, other than over the last 4 years, we have released Snagit on an annual cycle, right? Every year it comes out. I like Halloween time of year. Maybe you will too. We'll see what happens. So another question that came in, because we still have a few more minutes. I mean, do you still have a few minutes to stay with us? So there's things that people are really discovering about Snagit as we've expanded some of their options. People did not know you could customize your toolbar. There's a lot about Snagit that's based on discoverability. And one of the questions that came in from Francine was, is there a way to share style settings with the team, like color choices for numbered circles or fonts? That way they can make all the docs compatible. And there is something inside of Snagit called themes. Now, you may not have noticed this before, but over here, I've got the arrow tool selected, right? And there's a series of colors that come pre-installed with Snagit. Above that, there's a drop-down menu that says theme, and it's actually the basic theme that we ship with. Well, if you use that drop-down menu, there's usually one or two other ones that are coming in pre-installed. But you notice I have some that are customized. If I click Camtasia, there's all my Camtasia colors. If I click Snagit, there's all the Snagit blue and orange colors because I built a theme, and it could not be easier to do. You can do it from the drop-down menu and choose new theme, which brings up this new theme manager, and we can name this. So I'll call this 5 things. Then I can choose colors. Now, colors are tricky for me, right? I'm not a designer. I don't even pretend to be a designer, even though I'm an instructional designer by trade. If you choose the color area down here, you have the option of choosing a hex code if you happen to have it. This is great for company branding to make sure that you're staying on brand. You also have the RGB code available to you. But like I said, I'm not a designer, so I like to think that the Snagit devs put this little eyedropper in for me. When you click on that eyedropper, you simply hover over the color you want. Like maybe I want the Camtasia green color. I've got it. Maybe I want the Audiate purple color. Yep, got that too. Oops. And I closed it. So let's grab it one more time. Grab the Audiate purple color, the lighter version of it. And then maybe I want the Snagit blue color here. And then I'll leave the last one blank. Now I have the colorway that's ready for me for this particular project. I also can name a font. So if you have a particular font that your company uses, like we use a particular font. Let's see if I have it installed on this machine. I do, Muso. So I can hit create, and now I've got this 5 things font set, this style that I can use to make sure all of my projects are consistent. Now, if I want everybody on my team to use it, no problem. From that drop-down menu, click on the gear to the right of that particular theme title and hit export. Just like presets at the back of our presentation, you can share Snagit theme files with other members of your team as well. All they do is open up Snagit. If they have the a version of Snagit that supports themes, they then click on import, grab that Snagit theme file, it loads it, and you're ready to go. In fact, you don't even have to open Snagit. You can double click on that file and it'll launch it, install it as well. Response to that is screams into pillow with a smiley face. So there are people with lots of discoverability. Let's see. We got another question that Chandra's talking about. No, she was just answering a question, right? So there's so many other ways that you can use Snagit. We only scratched the surface here. One of the biggest questions people are asking is, Jesus, is a lot of great information. Are there more basic ways to learn Snagit? There is. You have not only our tutorial, our webinars, right? We have a getting started Snagit session. We just did one a week or so ago with Ryan. We have another one coming up in September. If you go to techsmith.com/webinars, you can register for any of the webinars, but there's also a button right here where you can view previous recordings. In fact, when I'm done rendering this video for this webinar, it'll be up here as well. But there is a getting started with Snagit session that Ryan and I did a couple of weeks ago. Let's see here. So you absolutely, everyone will get the recording at the end of this. Emmy, before we get into our last slide here, is there anything more that you would like to add? Because you kind of blew people's minds.
Oh, I just want to give a big thanks, and I will be going through this chat and the Q&A carefully, and hopefully you all are open to me reaching out, because like I said, my passion is interviewing. So if anybody is interested in that one-on-one and you want to throw your name in the chat, I'd love to follow up and learn more about your use cases and stories too.
Excellent. And Barbara made a comment. She says, Jonathan said, awesome webinar, longtime Snagit user, and I'm constantly amazed at how much I don't know. Ready for the admission of the day, Jonathan? I've been with TechSmith for 10 years. I've been a Snagit user for 15. I learn stuff all the time. That's the best part of it. And I don't have to use all of Snagit's power at once. I can use these small little chunks, especially some of the stuff that Emmy shared today, which I'm going to change some of my workflows based on it, just to make myself a little bit better, make my day a little easier. So we want to thank you all for being a part of this presentation. Emmy, I want to thank you for joining into the webinar session. At the end of this session, yeah, absolutely. When we turn off the webinar, you are going to be prompted with a survey. It takes about 1 minute, it's 4 questions long, and it's really important feedback for us. In fact, we take the information we gained from that survey data to create webinars like this. This is exactly how this one came about, when people were asking, like, I think I already know how to use Snagit. Why would I even attend another webinar? Or my company's looking at going more remote. We need a better way to communicate. So you will also have the opportunity to fill that out. We really appreciate you taking the time to do that. You also, within 24 hours, will get a recording of the webinar. You'll get a resources PDF that we have. And I got to remember, Emmy, to get a link to that meeting decision-making chart, because that was a big hit as well. So I want to also say thank you to the TechSmithies behind the scene, Rob, Melissa, and Chandra, for tackling all the questions that have come in. We hope you've enjoyed this experience. Thank you so much for being a part of it, and we'll see you at another webinar soon. Thanks again, Emmy.